Have you ever wondered how public schools are funded? Maybe you believe public schools receive too much money. Hear the ins and outs of the budgeting process for Aiken County Public Schools. You just might be surprised. Up next on Education Matters. Welcome inside of Education Matters. My name is Donna Moore Westby, your host of Education Matters, and we're connecting you to the world of education one step at a time. It's another beautiful day and a brand new segment, and we welcome you inside of Aiken Standard Television Studios. Today, I'm looking forward to this broadcast because it's an opportunity for you to get to know a little bit about the budgeting process for Aiken County Public Schools. If you're watching us from another county, your process is probably very familiar or very similar, I should say. So we want to make sure you are aware of what's going on as it relates to our budget, okay? We want you to be a part of the process, so make sure you watch the entire broadcast. You might be surprised of how complex this process really is. Of course, we'd like to thank the sponsors of Education Matters, and they are the Martial Arts Academy under the direction of Mr. Andrew Blocker. Also, the Barner Group Educational Associates. Also, Magnolia Medical Center. You'll hear more from Dr. Margot with her tip a little bit later on in the broadcast. Also, the Will Lou Gray Opportunity School out of West Columbia, changing the lives of youth and families right here in South Carolina. It's a great option if your child is struggling in a traditional classroom. I encourage you to look into the Will Lou Gray Opportunity School. And then, of course, Westby's Products and Services, creator of Don's Seasoning Delight, all-purpose seasoning and marinade. And then finally, the Bryant Insurance Agency, a brand new sponsor to Education Matters. Hopefully very soon you will see their commercial on the broadcast. The agent there is Miss Takia Dorn, and the number is 803-642-8505. So thanks to all of my sponsors who are definitely making it possible for us to bring you quality programming here every week inside of ASTV. I want to give shouts out to all of you who have been watching Education Matters, and I see you in the post office, or I see you in the grocery store, or in schools. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you share with others, your family, friends, certainly your children and your grandchildren about the existence of this program. This program is only as good as those who receive the information and then do something with the information. We're bringing in wonderful guests, and I'm very excited about today's guest, who is a wealth of knowledge. Mr. Trey Traxler, the comptroller for Aiken County Public Schools, does a phenomenal job of breaking down the information, so we hope you'll take advantage of this opportunity, all right? So thanks to all of you for watching. Continue to pray for our broadcast, that we bring you quality program that will help uplift our communities so that we can learn and grow together. All right, just a few announcements. From time to time, you may have a story idea, or you may want to provide comments or feedback about our broadcast here on Education Matters. Feel free to send me an email, and my email address is dwesby@edmat.com, okay? Again, that is dwesby@edmat.com. All right. Want to also extend to you an invitation to join my Facebook family. Every week, pretty much, maybe once, sometimes twice a week, I'll post a variety of messages on Facebook. Certainly, I'll post who my guests are on the radio broadcast as well as the television broadcast. This is a way that we can stay connected with one another. I also provide information on a variety of topics, and I'm also doing that by way of my website. But if you'd like to join my Facebook family, two ways in which you can do that. Certainly by going to my website, edmat.com, that is with two T's, or you can, in Facebook, click on or search for Education Matters with Donna Moore Wesby, all right? Like me and you'll be connected, all right? Want to also remind you, if you have a child that is in high school with aspirations of going to college, make sure that your child is registered to take the SAT or the ACT, okay? We've talked about that extensively on Education Matters, so want to remind you that the next test date where registration is still open is January the 28th of 2012, all right? The registration deadline for that exam is Friday, December the 30th. Don't forget that. Make sure you mark that down. Friday, December 30th is the deadline for regular registration for your child to take the SAT on January 28th. Now, for more information on both the SAT and the ACT, including descriptions of those exams, test dates, as well as registration information, again, you'll find that on my website, which is edmat.com. Okay? Moving right along to this week's Education Matters tip of the week. Okay? And this week's tip is, school will be closed for the holidays very soon. Start making plans now for childcare in case you have work to do, in case you have to work on days that your child is out of school, okay? Don't let that creep up on you and then present a scenario where your child, who probably does not need to be home alone, will be home alone. Go ahead and start working on that right now, okay? That is your tip of the week. Now, Trey, do you know what that sound means?
I don't.
What?
I'll let you tell me.
Okay, all right. Well, this is Education Matters, so I'll forgive you this time. That sound means that it is Word of the Week time inside of Education Matters. Every week we do provide you with a brand new Word of the Week, and this week's word is cunning. Cunning, yes. And it is spelled C-U-N-N-I-N-G. Cunning. And it is an adjective, and it means shrewd, which means having keen insight or discerning, okay? It also means crafty or artful. Another meaning is executed with or exhibiting ingenuity, all right? That's creativity. So I'll use cunning in a sentence for you. The lawyer delivered a cunning closing argument which helped the defendant win his case, all right? That is this week's Word of the Week. Practice it. Have fun with that Word of the Week, again, so that we may all learn and grow together, okay? Well, we've got lots of information to share with you today. Make sure you have your pencils and your paper with you, because we hope you will gain some brand new insight into how public schools in this area are funded, the ins and outs in terms of what we can use monies for, how we are funded, etc. There's no better person that I can think of to help us understand this very complex process than our very own comptroller here for Aiken County Public Schools, and that is Mr. Trey Traxler. Welcome back to Education Matters.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yes, I say to you, I've said to you before, you don't look like a stereotypical numbers man, but you definitely know your stuff. What is a comptroller, first of all?
Largely for our district, it's the person over all money matters,
Okay.
and that encompasses payroll, paying bills. We get hundreds of pots of money from different sources.
Mm-hmm.
Being over those, you have human resource components. It's just a variety. It's finance director plus additional duties.
So you're the money man.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you got your money man tie on. I like it. You're looking good. Well, we're excited to have you on, and I've only been a member of the Aiken County Board of Education for 3 years. It's hard to believe 3 years has gone by, but you have been a very key factor in helping the board members understand this complex process of budgeting, funding, etc. So let's get started with your presentation, and you're going to drive this train for us here today. Viewers, back in on November the 29th of this year, Mr. Traxler presented this information for the very first time in what we call Budget 101. And it is is it second attempt, Trey? I think
it is. It was the second year.
A second year that we have instituted this open to the public session to just be as transparent as the board could possibly be, but also to help enlighten our area on this process. You are a taxpayer. Maybe you are if you're watching us today, and you certainly have the right to understand where these dollars are going. So this information is for you. I want to also let you know that it is on the website, on the Aiken County Public Schools website, and it's also on Education Matters. If you go to EdMat and go to Aiken County Public Schools, then you will be able to access this information. Trey, let's get started.
Okay. And just before I get started, this is a ground level view of the budget. It's just November. Our year end is June 30. And as we get into the spring, we'll get more definite numbers, on budget numbers. But we wanted to give an overview of the budget.
All right, good.
So first, our budget calendar. Board policy requires that a budget calendar for the upcoming year be adopted by November 1. So our budget calendar that the school board approved in October had Budget 101 on December 29th. And in December, January, February, even on into March, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes work that goes on. Budget estimates, tracking what's going on with the legislature, student projections, things of that nature. Beginning in mid-March, we have a budget workshop. And these dates are fluid as well. The board could choose to add a budget workshop or two before or after that. In April, we present a preliminary budget to the board. May 8th, we plan to present a tentative budget, and it's not going to be final, but you'll have some things will be more certain at that point. Other items, we're still waiting on the process to work itself out. We're required by law to advertise our budget. That's advertised in late May. There's a special call meeting on June 5th that's been new for this budget calendar. And that's to give citizens a chance to come out and speak in opposition or for our budget.
Is that also an opportunity for regular citizens to provide suggestions on what should be or should not be included in the budget?
It is, and there are opportunities. There's public participation at every regularly called board meeting, so someone's welcome to speak then. But this is an evening specific for citizens to speak to the budget.
All right.
June 12th, we have a public hearing on the budget and on millage rates, and we plan to adopt the budget for the 12-13 school year on June 26th. And we also, at the conclusion of that, and after we've received additional info from the state, we publish a budget, a bound budget booklet that gives descriptions on some of our funds, some of the pots of money, and it gives demographics info, such as student counts, employees, et cetera.
All right, good. Now, I believe what we're going to present now is some what I call fast facts on the district. This district is very unique, and I don't think people realize how unique we are. Share with our viewers some fast facts about Aiken County.
Aiken County is approximately the same size as the state of Rhode Island. It's the 6th largest district in the state out of, I believe there are 84 currently.
That's correct.
Aiken's the 6th largest in terms of enrollment. Now the state looks at things oftentimes in terms of weighted pupil units. A weighting is assigned to a regular ed student, a higher weighting is assigned to special ed students of different classifications. So in terms of weighted pupil units, we're 7th largest in the state. We have approximately 3,200 employees, and we're the 2nd largest employer in the county.
Wow.
We have 18 elementary schools, 2 combination elementary middle schools, 9 middle schools, 7 high schools. We operate a career center, 2 learning centers, a parenting center, and we also sponsor 3 charter schools.
That's quite a vast and it's a vast area that we're covering. But also, when we have that type of a breakdown from elementary all the way to your learning centers and parenting center, that means our funding sources are very different, and it also you're going to cover how we're only able to use certain funds for certain initiatives, projects, etc.
Correct.
So it's a crucial point for us to see how unique our district is and the needs of our district. Trey, let's go ahead and address now how we are actually, what is a fund? Because I think many people are not clear on how we get our money.
Okay, well, governments follow fund accounting rules, and a fund essentially is a separate set of accounting records. So your typical business is going to have one set of accounting records. Well, we have a set of accounting records for each funding source that we receive. So we get Title I money. That's one that people often hear of. There's a separate fund for it. Our IDEA, the special ed dollars that we receive, we get a separate funding. We have a separate fund for it. Our capital needs, our 5-year facilities plan, there are separate funds for that. It's all based on what the transaction is and what the purposes of the dollars we receive are.
All right.
And the State Department of Ed puts out guidance. They have a funding manual that outlines the purposes of different funds, what's allowed, what isn't allowed. You have different allocation methods as well. You may have some dollars that are based on overall student counts, some that are based on 1st through 3rd grade student counts, for instance, and those things are also detailed in there.
Right. So when school districts are facing scenarios like many are facing right now with budget cuts and decreasing dollars from the state level and from the federal level, it really has a tremendous impact on what a district can and cannot do, because there's so many controls on that money.
We've oftentimes heard, well, you're cutting here, but you're still building buildings, or you're still renovating.
Right.
And this isn't one large pot of money, everything put together. We issue bonds to finance building construction and renovations and cyclic maintenance, and those dollars have to be used for those projects. Title I dollars are specific what they have to be used for. So the dollars are designated for certain purposes. Now, in our operating budget, general fund, we have more leeway and discretion there, but that's where most of our salaries are, energy costs, things of those nature. So you have discretion, but dollars are also limited.
Okay, all right, very good. We are supposed to take a commercial break right now, but I'm going to forego that right now and continue on, because I want to get a little bit deeper into the information before we cut this flow. So go ahead and continue on with a description of the funds. Okay,
well, our largest fund is the general fund, and oftentimes you'll hear board members refer to it as Fund 1. This is used to account for day-to-day operations. if activities shouldn't be classified in another fund, this is where it's recorded. The property tax revenues from operating millage are recorded here. Our EFA allocation, that's the Education Finance Act, is the largest state allocation we receive. It's recorded here. Things of that nature are revenues. The kinds of expenditures you'd see are salaries, fringe benefits, which are payroll taxes, health insurance, retirement, energy, and so on.
Okay.
The second type of fund we have is a special revenue fund, and this is a combination of local dollars, donations that were given to the district for a specific purpose, federal dollars or state dollars that have certain requirements there. And examples of that are Title I, IDEA, lottery dollars, and as I mentioned, local donations.
Just real quickly, on the lottery dollars, we get questions all the time, and hey, all that money that the lottery has brought in, why don't we ever hear of it being used in our public schools? Address that question.
Well, first off, the dollars are split between higher education and K through 12. K through 12 gets a smaller portion. This year, I want to say we're getting about $1 million in lottery.
$1 million.
Yes, and to some people that sounds like a lot of money, and it is. But grand scheme there are limits on that.
Yes, yes.
What we're using those dollars for this year are to fund reading interventionists at schools to the extent possible. These were positions that were created with ARA dollars, the stimulus dollars, and even though those dollars went away, the board saw the benefit of those positions and wanted to continue that, and we're funding those out of lottery dollars now.
Okay, all right, very good.
Another fund is similar to special revenue, but it's based on a statewide penny sales tax, is our Education Improvement Act Fund. And there are a number of programs that's funded by this penny sales tax through the state, such as funding for at-risk students, academically and artistically advanced, which a lot of people refer to as gifted and talented. Teacher supply checks, each teacher receives a $275 check for teacher supplies at the beginning of the year. That's state funded. These dollars are funded with EIA. Our kindergarten program is partially funded out of EIA dollars.
I think one of the messages that I wanted to clearly try to get across to our citizens is much of the funds that school districts have access to are very much controlled. They're designated for specific purposes, and with the Education Improvement Act, that's very much tied to what our delegation in South Carolina decides, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we have to have, in order for us to have a certain amount of money, we have to have our delegation understanding what our needs are, but also it's a very difficult situation for them because they're looking at more than just Aiken County. They're looking at all the school districts and trying to balance the budget as well.
Other funds that we use are a debt service fund. I mentioned earlier that we issue bonds to fund our capital projects. Those bonds are paid off by collection of property taxes. And there are two types of property taxes we collect. They're operating and debt service. Debt service millage is used to pay off bonds, and we account for it in this separate fund. So the repayment of bond principal, bond interest is accounted for here. We have our school building fund to account for construction, renovations, etc. We have a school food service fund to account for those operations. Finally, we have a pupil activity fund. That's not one that we budget for, but it is included in our annual audit. These are dollars that are spent at the local level, at the school level, such as Beta Club and things of that nature.
So of our revenues and our expenditures, what are our primary sources of revenue, and what's the breakdown?
We have three sources of revenue: state, federal, and local.
Mm-hmm.
Approximately half is state dollars, about 11% are federal, and the rest are local. Federal, that percentage has shrunk recently because we no longer have stimulus dollars. Also, the size of our portion that is state dollars indicates why whenever we hear about mid-year state budget cuts,
That's right.
why it has such an effect on the district, because it's such a large portion of our funding. We're very dependent on state funding.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And you can't underscore that point enough. So when the state is in trouble, the school districts are in trouble.
You're exactly right. And a lot of our budget process is based on the state, what they're doing. So from February, March, April, May on out to June, we're tracking things such as base student cost, whether allocations are going to be increased,
Mm-hmm.
or are they going to be reduced, or will they be eliminated. All of that has a bearing on our budget.
So our process that we're going through right now, this whole budget process and looking at student projections in terms of enrollment, knowing how much to allocate for certain initiatives, for certain projects, really your office is always trying to stay in contact with the State Department of Education and also our legislature, because that being closely tied with them is what then helps us to develop a budget that we can then work off of.
Typically, once we get to February, we're receiving daily updates, checking newspapers, checking a variety of websites for information on the budget.
Wow. And so basically it never ends. You don't have much downtime.
It doesn't, and it's very fluid.
Mm-hmm. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead then and, in a nutshell, capture our examples of revenues by source.
Okay. Well, local are largely property tax dollars, but our bond proceeds, any interest we earn on dollars, we consider those local.
Mm-hmm.
Federal dollars, as I mentioned, Title I, IDEA, stimulus dollars, those are examples of federal.
Mm-hmm.
And state would be the lottery, the at-risk funding, our EFA allocation, which for the year we're in is approximately $42 million. Those are examples of state monies.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, right now, as where we are in our budget process, how do you think Aiken County is going to fare out with what we're anticipating getting and what will actually be the final number?
Well, it's still very early in the process, and we're tracking, and there aren't a whole lot of firm numbers out there right now.
Okay. Okay.
But we work projections throughout, and it is a year-round process, the budget is.
Okay. And lastly, before we go to the break, how does Aiken compare against the state of South Carolina in our tax rates?
I have a schedule graph here that shows our comparison based on 2010 tax rates. Aiken, as far as operating millage, is lower than the state average. Aiken's operating millage in 2010 was 137.5 mils. The state average was approximately 170 mils. So about a 33 mil difference in operating millage. Whenever you look at overall millage, the operating plus the debt service, Aiken's was approximately 164 mils that year. The state average was 207 mils. Aiken, out of the 85 school districts that were in existence during 09-10, there were 65 school districts that had a higher operating millage than Aiken, and 68 school districts that had a higher overall millage than Aiken.
So you can see, looking at these numbers, you can see why there are some residents who would have been supportive of the bond referendum because our millage rates in this area are considerably lower than other districts within the state, and they're able to do more in terms of facility improvements, et cetera, for their schools.
Correct. Now, each district has a different value of a meal. So for us, our property taxes per meal may be higher than some rural districts. But what is the same is the cost to a taxpayer. So a homeowner, 1 meal of debt service millage is going to cost a taxpayer $4 per 100,000 in value. A business owner is going to pay $6 per 100,000 per meal. So the cost to a taxpayer is the same. The revenues generated from those taxes will differ because the value of a meal differs.
Okay. All right. Well, you're hearing it right here inside of Education Matters directly from the money man himself, and that is Aiken County Public Schools Comptroller, Mr. Trey Traxler. After we hear a few words from our sponsor and also a brand new segment from Dr. Margot Muniz, we'll be right back and continue the ins and outs of the budgeting process for Aiken County Public Schools. We'll be right back.
The Will Lou Gray Opportunity School has been serving the beautiful Midlands of South Carolina since 1921. Our mission has evolved over the years, and we now specialize in helping young people move past their obstacles in order to achieve success. We give students opportunities to lead, to develop social skills, to become active in their communities, and to taste success. Don't settle for less than the absolute best for your life. Contact us today to take the next step in your journey toward success.
Does your child or grandchild need help in reading or math, or can benefit from preparatory coursework for the HSAP, ACT, or SAT? If so, contact the Barner Group Educational Associates. Our staff specializes in formatting an individualized approach to assisting your child academically. We offer low-cost tutorial services and educational programs. Participants may qualify for free services. To learn more, call for Alicia Cuthbertson of the Barner Group Educational Associates, 1-888-TBG-3996.
I lead a busy life, but I still have to make sure my family eats right. And everybody loves Dawn's Seasoning Delight. I use Dawn's on meats and vegetables. It's healthy, tastes great, and it's simple to use. It's like having a chef in a bottle.
My seasoning is available at Kroger, Bilo, Food Line, Reeds, and Harvest. Look for it on display in the meat department. Also visit seasoningdelight.com for information and recipes. Dawn's Seasoning Delight. It's so good.
Next time on Education Matters, we'll rebroadcast this week's program at 7 a.m., 1 p.m., and 11 p.m., entitled Budget 101 for Aiken County Public Schools. We want to give more people an opportunity to hear the Reader's Digest version of the budgeting process presented by Comptroller Trey Traxler. It's quite an eye-opener. That's Education Matters with Donna Moore Wesby right here on ASTV Channel 95.
Total Women's Health Care means treating the women physically, emotionally, and everything in between. At Magnolia Medical Women's Center, we treat and diagnose common and unusual medical problems related to female health. Magnolia Medical Center is a premium high-level obstetrics and gynecology clinic for women of all ages. Our clients receive the time they deserve without feeling rushed and unimportant. We are located in the Aiken Medical Center, 410 University Parkway in Aiken, Suite 2300. Call us today at 803-649-6366.
Need positive and constructive after-school activities for your children? Call the Martial Arts Academy in Aiken under the direction of International Olympic trainer Andrew Blocker. The Martial Arts Academy offers an award-winning approach to teaching Taekwondo. It's an effective approach to instilling discipline. The Martial Arts Academy also offers self-defense and fitness classes for all ages. Enroll today in this affordable program by calling 803-642-5723 or visit the studio at 2398 Whiskey Road in Aiken. The Martial Arts Academy, positively changing the lives of youth and adults.
Welcome back inside of Education Matters. Today we're talking with Aiken County Public Schools Comptroller, Mr. Trey Traxler, the money man, and he's helping us understand a little bit of the ins and outs of the budgeting process currently here in Aiken County and probably all over this area and certainly this state. School districts are preparing their budgets for the coming year, and we are certainly in the midst of that process right now. Trey, let's pick back up on our revenues and expenditures and see how that pie is all divided up. I think it's wonderful information for our the constituents to see how those monies are divvied up.
Well, our expenditures are categorized oftentimes by function or object. And a function basically is the purpose of an expenditure. Some examples of this would be kindergarten, primary, high school, learning disabled. Those are broad categories or function. An object focuses more on specifics, such as salaries, energy cost, telephone cost, so it gets a little more specific by function. I have a pie chart here that shows our operating expenditures by function. The only thing that this pie chart does not include are our costs for a construction program and debt service. Those are considered long-term or non-operating type costs. This gray section here is our instruction. The green is instructional support. So you'll see that approximately 74% of our operating expenditures go for instruction and instructional support. That's classroom time, guidance, professional development for teachers, media specialists, things of that nature, teacher aid.
So basically 70 cents of a dollar goes into the classroom or classroom support.
That's correct.
All right.
18% are for our operations. Operations includes operation of facilities, the energy cost, financial operations of the district, transportation, school food service, things of that nature. 6% is school leadership. These are our costs for principals and assistant principals and their office staffs and office supplies. And 1% is program management. Those are various directors, coordinators of our programs, and another 1% is district leadership. Those are costs for superintendent, and it also includes things like workers' compensation. We have to group these a certain way, and that's one of the items that's grouped up under district leadership.
All right.
Now, if we look at all expenditures by function, and that's including debt service and our capital program, you still see that 61% of all dollars is tied up in instruction and instructional support. And that's every dollar.
I think people really need to get the message of what these two slides alone say, and that is when Aiken County Public School District in particular had to respond to lower budgets in the past couple of years, programs that we had to cut out, like the International Baccalaureate program, which in itself, I love the program, but it costs $400,000. Driver's ed, just a variety of cuts that we had to make. When you look at it, with most of our dollars coming from areas in instruction and instructional support, in order to realize some savings, these are the areas in which we have to cut. At least some significant savings.
That's true. They make up 3/4 of the pie. So yes, it's very difficult to cut and not affect those areas.
And it's also very difficult to cut and not affect personnel. You also have a slide that shows the amount of operating expenditures just in salaries.
Yes, salaries and payroll taxes and related account for about 83% of our expenditures. So a couple years ago, whenever we had to furlough employees, when the board approved doing that, it wasn't the desire of the board, but there are limited options. You have energy costs that account for a significant portion of that. We had to pay our 3 charter schools their dollars based on formulas. Those are dollars that we couldn't cut. So it's very difficult to affect or to have cuts that don't affect salaries or don't come close to affecting salaries.
Right. Now, how does Aiken, in terms of the money we spend in other districts in the state, how do we compare with others as it relates to the amount of money we spend on instruction and instructional support?
As far as actual dollars, there are a couple of comparisons that we look at.
Okay.
We have a state average for our operating only dollars, and then we have districts like us. And districts like ours aren't necessarily the same in size and student enrollment. They're districts that have like poverty indexes. So they may be 5 percentage points higher or 5 percentage points lower, and they're considered districts like us.
So when we're using that terminology, districts like ours, we're referring to the poverty index.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's
All
correct.
right.
Not districts of the same size. And this table we have shows that Aiken spends approximately, or this most recent year that's available, spend approximately $7,500 per pupil. Districts like us spend about $8,800. The state average was $9,000. We've also looked at it, looking at all of our expenditures. How does Aiken compare? And this is going to be skewed somewhat because you have some districts that spend very little to no money on capital needs. You have some districts that have had rather large referendums passed in the last few years. So this skews it some. But
Okay.
for Aiken, all expenditures, we were averaging about $8,700 per student spending. The state average was about $12,000. Districts like ours were $11,700. Now, to put it in whole dollars, to paint the picture even more, if Aiken were to get up to the same level that districts like ours were spending, in this year in particular, we would have spent $31 million more.
Wow.
And that's 1 year. And to continue to be at that level, you're speaking of spending $30+ million more per year.
And I'm not going to be one to say that to just throw money at a problem and it's going to fix all things. But one of the things that we're doing is looking at these other districts and seeing what they're able to buy for those additional dollars and what impact are those additional dollars having on student achievement and graduation rates, et cetera. So to see what the parallel is, because it certainly does make a difference.
Correct.
All right. Let's go ahead now and talk about, you all actually have one more slide before we go to the break. The slide that shows instructional and instructional support comparison, Aiken, state average, like districts average, because it shows that percentage.
Right.
Yeah.
Aiken spent, as I showed on that first pie chart, about 74% in instruction and instructional support. The state average is a little less than 71%. Districts like ours spend a little more than 71%. And while our dollars are less than per pupil spending than what districts like ours and the state average, we're giving a larger portion of the pie towards instruction and instructional support.
Okay, very good. Well, Trey, certainly an eye-opener already, and it's very complex, and I don't even pretend as if I understand everything about it, but you certainly do help us out. And we hope you're being enlightened today. After a few more words from our sponsors, we'll come back and talk about the words you've probably heard before, fund balance. How much cash do we have right here in Aiken County on hand to operate in case of an emergency? I think you'll be surprised. We'll be right back.
Hi there, this is Dr. Margot Muniz, and we're here today for Magnolia Medical's Women's Health Tip. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about abnormal uterine bleeding. Abnormal uterine bleeding is quite common, and I would assume that it occurs pretty much to all of us at some point in time in our life. We've all had that embarrassing accident, where you have your friend sneak up behind you and kind of walk behind you out of the church. A lady who's having a continuous problem with heavy menstrual bleeding, irregular bleeding, who is bleeding more than 2 times a month, or is changing their pad and or tampon every hour to 2 hours is bleeding too much. And this is a very common problem and can be caused by multiple things. A lot of ladies just assume it's them, it's normal, it's been like that their whole life. It is entirely easy to evaluate and treatable. A lot of ladies are afraid to get it assessed because they're afraid that it's going to result in a hysterectomy. We have a myriad of very easy, minimally invasive treatments available to control heavy menstrual bleeding and return you back to normal life activities without having to worry about little accidents and allow you to wear white just like in the commercials. So you have a pleasant day, and we'll talk to you next week. This is Dr. Muniz. Thank you.
Total women's health care means treating the women physically, emotionally, and everything in between. At Magnolia Medical Women's Center, we treat and diagnose common and unusual medical problems related to female health. Magnolia Medical Center is a premium high-level obstetrics and gynecology clinic for women of all ages. Our clients receive the time they deserve without feeling rushed and unimportant. We are located in the Aiken Medical Center, 410 University Parkway in Aiken, Suite 2300. Call us today at 803-649-6366.
When it comes to grilling, I'm the man. Using Dawn Seasoning Delight, I'm the grill master.
My seasoning is available at Kroger, Buy Low, Food Line, Reeds, and Harvest. Look for it on display in the meat department. Also visit seasoningdelight.com for information and recipes. Dawn Seasoning Delight. It's so good.
Dawn Seasoning Delight is so good.
Welcome back inside of Education Matters. You caught me there. Today we're talking about budgeting. And if you take care of a budget at home and you set one up, well, it's somewhat similar, but a lot more complex, a lot more funds to take care of. We're talking about the budgeting process for Aiken County Public Schools. If you're in Allendale watching us today or Barnwell County, your school district is doing the same thing right now. So hopefully it's very informative for you as well. Let's talk about fund balance. I know people have heard those words before. What actually is it?
There's a misconception that fund balance is cash.
All right.
And it's not. It's the assets that the district has, less any liabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the accumulation, too, of inflows and outflows over years. It's not just 1 year's time.
Right.
These are years and years worth of inflows and outflows. We just completed our audit, submitted it to the state by December 1, and we had a fund balance at year end of $24 million.
Mm-hmm.
That's approximately.
We'll ring my bell on that. That's good.
And 24 million, of course, is a big number.
Mm-hmm.
That's 16% of the budget that we're in now, and would provide about 2 months worth of operations in an emergency situation.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And it's in that range that's recommended. You often hear between 12-16% in fund balance should be maintained for a rainy day fund and for emergency situations and unexpected repairs, things of that nature.
And I think for our viewers, that last bullet, why is this important? Why is fund balance important? Because it could have or not implications on our taxes or on our borrowing, I should say. So discuss that.
That's right. There's a lag from the time we receive most of our property taxes for the district. Typically, we get most of those monies in December and January. But we have costs throughout the year. So in order to bridge a gap we issue short-term debt, it's repaid with interest. And by having a larger fund balance, that we hope to avoid issuing these short-term debt.
Which are called TANs, as you see on the screen there.
And that in turn would save interest.
Okay.
I also wanted to touch on student projections.
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people think that the number of first grade students at a school in this year is going to equal the number of second grade students next year, and that's not the case. There are a variety of things that can affect it, and we look at historical trends in order to project student counts by grade, by school. And those projections are really the basis for our budget, or a large portion of it. It's going to determine the number of teachers that schools have by grade, the number of librarians, assistant principals, things of that nature. And we also use it to calculate revenue estimates for the year.
All right, good. And also, in what we're looking at right now, want to show our viewers just a few things that not just Aiken, but several of the districts in this state, things that they've had to cut or reduce in order to respond to budget shortfalls. And these are just a few things that Aiken County has had to do.
We have a recap of several years' budgets, elimination of some positions, furloughing employees. We have this broken down by year, and it'll be available, or it is available on our website for viewing. Increasing pupil-teacher ratios, cutting travel budgets, cutting programs, tax increases are listed on here, not giving pay increases, not giving step increases to teachers, things of that nature.
So when people talk about cutting teacher pay, and why don't you pay teachers more money, and all of the different things that you hear all the time, I hear all the time, what is the reality of every school district when it comes to the budgeting process as it relates to teacher pay, increases, etc.?
Well, a lot of it's going to be based on, or it is based on, the resources that are available and restrictions that you have on dollars. You have a limited pot of money, and I'm sure that other boards like our board have a wish list of things, that programs they would like to put in place and give employees pay raises and things of that nature. And unfortunately, it always doesn't work out that way.
Right.
But what we try to do is not only plan for the year that we're in, but plan for the year ahead or 2 years down the road as well.
I think what has also helped us in this state is our local state delegation has enacted some legislation that has helped us in terms of flexibility. And talk about the importance of flexibility.
Well, we've mentioned flexibility often in board meetings, and this was approved by the state legislature, and it gives school districts the ability to move state monies around if needed. It gives school districts the ability to furlough teachers. Before flexibility, you couldn't do that. Some school districts have used teacher supply checks rather than furloughing employees, have used that to help fill a budget gap.
Okay.
And freezing teacher steps, but largely it just gives school districts options, and school districts don't have to do this, but there are options that are available, and there are certain guidelines that have to be met in order to participate in flexibility.
All right, good. Before we end today's discussion, I definitely want to talk about our largest fund because there's quite a bit of, I'd say, misconceptions about what we can and cannot do. Let's talk about Fund 1 and enlighten our viewers today.
Fund 1 is our largest. For this year that we're in, the original budget was $153 million. And approximately 2/3 of all of our expenditures are captured in Fund 1. Property taxes make up a large portion of the revenues, as does the Education Finance Act. That's our largest state allocation. And it's based on a formula. This graph that I have here shows three things. There's a yellow line that shows ideally where base student costs would be.
So that would be our wishful thinking.
That is determined by the state.
Okay.
If funding were in accordance with legislation, this is where it would be.
Okay.
The green is the proviso, basically where we started the year what they anticipated paying districts in terms of base student cost, and the red is where we were actually paid. And there was a significant dip beginning in late 08, 09, 10, below that yellow line, and this is where our base student cost is currently at, I believe, 1999 levels instead of being at 2011, 2012 levels.
And the implications of this is when you are on a projection that is anticipated to move up, and then it suddenly takes that strong dip like ours did in reality, that's a tremendous impact on school districts where those monies are tied to programs, initiatives, etc.
Our EFA allocation reached $56 million in, I believe, the 07-08 school year. This past year was $38 million. This year it's increased to about $42 million. So yes, this had a significant impact. This schedule, in essence, shows that between where we should be or where we hope to be, the ideal situation, and where we are, there's about $1,000 difference per student in funding from the state.
And although there are some things we know, there are several things we don't know. In about 30 seconds, capture some of our unknowns right now, and then I want you to give a wrap-up with our district website and other contact information.
All right. Well, there are a lot of unknowns. I just mentioned base student cost, and where that will be next year is a big question mark. We have how much the district can go up on taxes is capped based on state law. How much that cap would be, where that cap would be, is a big question mark at this point. Changes in guidelines, changes in allocations, elimination, those are all questions that we aren't able to answer at that time or that we're still gathering info on.
Okay. And then I know we've covered quite a bit and there's so much we didn't cover. Give contact information if viewers would like to give feedback or learn more.
My contact information is on the district website. Just look up under the finance department. Also on the district website, we have several items, general info on the budget, our past audits, the approved budget, and information of that matter, and it can be found at our district website.
All right. Well, Mr. Trey Traxler, thanks so much. You did it again. Certainly, lots we didn't get a chance to cover today, but again, all of the slides that we use for Budget 101 are on the website. Just go to edmat.com. Want to give shouts out to Trey and his staff. We have what's called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It's a huge step in opening transparency for our district. Congratulations to you for all the great work. Ask those questions, be involved in the process, all right? My name is Donna Moore Westby, your host of Education Matters, where we're connecting you to the world of education one step at a time. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yes,
If you are interested in becoming an individual or corporate sponsor of Education Matters or to receive sponsorship information, call Donna Moore Westby at 803-507-6793 or send an email to dwesby@edmat.com.
Need positive and constructive after-school activities for your children? Call the Martial Arts Academy in Aiken under the direction of International Olympic trainer Andrew Blocker. The Martial Arts Academy offers an award-winning approach to teaching Taekwondo. It's an effective approach to instilling discipline. The Martial Arts Academy also offers self-defense and fitness classes for all ages. Enroll today in this affordable program by calling 803-642-5723 or visit the studio at 2398 Whiskey Road in Aiken. The Martial Arts Academy, positively changing the lives of youth and adults.